The next one now, we're moving on to nutrition, onto food. Bottom step is people who eat carbohydrates or protein alone. Okay, so this is if you just have a piece of fruit, or you're just having a piece of ham, something like that, or you have a main meal and it's all protein or carbohydrates. The reason it's so bad is if you have too much proteins, it'll make you go to sleep. If you have too many carbohydrates, it'll take you onto a hypo. If you're a diabetic, that's the worst thing you can do. It'll also make you crave as well quite shortly if you have a lot of carbohydrates. The next step up from there is eating carbohydrates and proteins together every meal. Um, if you can on snacks, but it's not that important. And the top step there is something called your metabolic type. We'll be talking about metabolic typing in a different video. But again, if you know about metabolic typing, start doing it now. Next one is budget food. The reason budget food's so bad is because A, it's normally highly processed, and B, it hasn't had its natural forms of growing. So, for instance, let's use budget chickens. Okay, most of these will be like from caged hens. They won't be in their natural environment. Their feed will be very low quality, and if they get ill, they will be injected with things. And sometimes these animals are actually injected things just to make them fatter, or they're injected from the beginning to make sure they don't get any illness. So when you are buying budget food, the nutrients in these are almost non-existent because they've gone through so many different processes which are unnatural. Now, if you are dieting on a budget and you don't eat any meat at the moment, then actually eating budget meat is a little bit better for you than no meat at all. So please put this into context of your life. And again, this is why we have this step-by-step system. The next one stepping up is free range stroke corn fed. Okay, so this is free range foods. And this can be eggs, this can be meat, this can be wild fish. Okay, so anything that's more in its natural environment will allow it to exercise. The next one up is organic. The reason we like organic is because obviously the farmers legally are not allowed to put any sort of toxins or chemicals into the animal or into the feed. I'll give you a little example of this. If you get a budget chicken leg, okay, and pull it apart, it will just we can just yank it apart nicely. It will just fall apart. If we get an organic chicken leg, okay, we will literally have to yank it apart because it's had all its nutrients, it's been able to run free, and it's actually got those growth within its bones and its joints and its ligaments and stuff. So that's exactly the same with us guys. If we eat these budget foods that have got no nutritional value, then our bones and our joints will also just fall apart if they have any pressure on them. Whereas if we have organic foods and we really lower our toxin intake, we will also be like that organic chicken and be big and strong, rah, okay, and have the correct health within. Um, the next one is local organic. The reason organic foods are so important, particularly with fruit and vegetables, is because when they come from far away, they're actually picked early, so they never reach their full nutrients, and because they want to get them to us when they're just ripening. Okay, so this is the biggest problem with non-local foods. Then the other side is environmental and cost-wise. If something's coming from South Africa, for instance, we're actually having to pay the airfare for that lettuce to go on its holiday. Okay, so really think about that, and that's why we should be supporting local farmers because the food standards here are a little bit higher. And then again, you're not paying for the air miles, and the nutritional value isn't being depleted from flying over on a plane for a day. And then finally, organic wild. A lot of local farmers, again, you can see the animals just running wild. And again, it's really important that people are in their natural environment as well as just being free range. Right, next one we're going to talk about processed foods. So processed foods are any sort of convenience meals, pot noodles, even like the Marks and Spencer's shepherd's pie deal. Okay, that is a processed food. It's been commercially made, and even though you may be paying a lot of money for it, it's still a processed food. Um, right, moving up from there is canned foods. Anything in a can is a little bit better than a processed food. For instance, a can of tuna is better than a pot noodle. Moving up from there is frozen food. So again, if you think about frozen veg and stuff, they've still got vitamins and minerals in. But stepping up really, and this is the easiest one for most people, is to have fresh foods. and actually go out to the shops a couple of times a week. You'll see daily fresh. Even if you're going twice a week to the shops to get your fresh foods, you are going to get the best nutrients, especially with things like vegetables, because again, that you will see that they lose their colour and you just their texture and stuff. With meat, you'll see it going brown as well. A big sign, even if it's not even at its date yet, anything that starts to change colour is a sign that the oxygen is, depleting the nutrients. So please be careful when buying a lot of food. You're much better to shop more often, and obviously you won't have much waste that way as well. Next one, moving on to microwaves. Now, this is a controversial subject, but basically, imagine if there was a glass screen around your deep fryer. What would you think? Okay, you'd think there must be something weird happening inside that deep fryer, and it's exactly the same with a microwave. Why do we need that massive protective shield on something that's been cooking? Okay, it's because it's radiation. But the biggest thing with microwaves is the fact that the higher the temperature you cook something, the more nutrients will be lost. And as you know, when you're microwaving food, you have to cook it for longer because it's very sporadic. It cooks from the inside, and there's actually some parts on the plate or in the bowl which aren't hot. So you have to stir it and then put it in again just to make sure it's all hot. So that's the biggest problem with microwave. Obviously, being around electromagnetic stress, radiation, is not good for you as well. Yes, it's a very small level and is on a safe level, but long term, if you're a very toxic person, for instance, if you've got cancer, then having something being around a microwave and having something that's been in a microwave is really not a good idea. Next step up is deep frying foods, and again, it's a very high temperature. It's not quite as high as a microwave, but it is almost. The next one up is frying and grilling. Again, that you are getting that quite high heat, even though it might be for a short time. The best one is boiling and baking. Okay, so boiling things and baking things. Obviously, you don't want to boil them to nothing, but just giving them enough so the food is edible. And the top step there is raw foods. Obviously, I'm not talking about raw chicken here. I am talking about raw vegetables if you like them and raw fruits. But again, you can have rare beef and stuff like that, which is much more nutritious than heavily cooked foods. Flash cooking, so steaming vegetables, which is really good. Then also in wok, so again, something's really cooked just like for a minute and then it's nice like that. So think about flash cooking, have your vegetables al dente. Next one is the frequency of your meals. Eating one meal a day is obviously the worst thing to do because again, or eating nothing because your blood sugar is just, your metabolism is just all over the place. The next one is eating throughout the day but not having any breakfast. Again, your metabolism will be dormant half of the day, and again will make you crave more in the evenings. The next step up is to snack all day. So if you're not into meals, what I would really advise you is to have little snacks all the way through the day. And again, it will get your metabolism up. And once that's up and starts to burn fat, you will start to feel like having some big meals. And then finally, and this is where I want you to stop, is to have 3 meals a day and snacks. Now, the reason we promote snacks is because it does keep your metabolism going, and it does stop your blood sugar dropping and craving for foods. And only when you're your optimum weight, or if you're a carbohydrate type, you should be having 3 meals a day and no snacks. And obviously, if you're at your optimum weight and you do exercise or anything like that, then you may need some snacks to keep you going. Right, the next one is a bit of a general one. All foods. If you think about all foods, you have a balanced meal of all of them. The next step up from that is having a unprocessed mix. So again, moving on to fresher foods. The next one is metabolic typing foods. Again, later on in the course, the manual will talk about metabolic typing foods, and we've actually got lists of foods that we recommend you to stick to. So again, that's a step up from having everything. And the next one is your metabolic typing foods. Whether you're a protein type, you're a carbohydrate type, there's actually a list for your type. So again, that's the step up there. Next one, tea and coffee, we'll do at the same time. Coffee and tea, so just have it decaf and weak is the first step up if you're drinking a lot of that at the moment. The step up from that is to go organic. Now, we do recommend to have cream or to have it quite milky as the next step, purely because stimulants like caffeine work the same as sugar. They take your blood sugar stroke stimulation system up and then it will drop back down and then you will be craving for more and more. If you have some caffeine and some protein, it will take your blood sugar stimulation up, but it will go it for longer and slower. So instead of going right up, and instead of going up and down in half an hour or an hour, it actually go up for 2 or 3 hours. So therefore, you won't be craving for tea and coffee all day like a lot of people are if they do drink, one in the morning. If you do drink tea, there is a good alternative, which is red bush tea, and that's naturally caffeine free. It has still got some toxins in, but it's much better than regular tea. And you'll notice on the top step there's nothing, and that's purely because if you look back at the ancient times, people used to drink plain water, and nothing else. So again, a little bit now and again is not going to harm you, but please try and go to plain water instead of regularly having these hot drinks.